to get Dr. Tinker to come and present to us, to the Bahamian community here in New York City. Dr. Keith Lamont Tinker is a seasoned historian, researcher, author, lecturer, and consultant. He received his master's degree from Florida Atlantic University and his PhD from Florida State University, both in history. He has researched and authored several books and scholarly articles. He has been on the staff of College of the Bahamas and lectured at universities in the United States. He presently holds the title of Director for the National Museum of the Bahamas. He has been associated with the delivery of public service most of his career, serving in finance education and courses in the interflow of people. Their heritage and impact and have on one another. At this point, I'll let Dr. Tinker speak for himself. Please welcome Dr. Lamont.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your persistence in getting me to come. It's really a pleasure for me to be here, and it's a pleasure to see people from home. It means a lot. And I wanted to pause to welcome a very special gentleman who I cannot remember his name, but he assisted me at the Schaumburg this morning, and he's here tonight. Could you just stand for just a second, please? He assisted me this morning. It's very touching. Thank you so much. I wanted to share with you for the next few minutes, and I'm finding it as I go along. A PowerPoint that I have that actually shares information on the ongoing relationship between the Bahamas and this country. It goes way back. I'm going to try in just a few minutes encapsulate 500 years. It's not going to be easy, so it's going to be like hopping to subjects, but I think some of the information you already know. I think others tidbits you will find interesting. As we move on, I'd like you to just engage me and we'll just talk about what I have here. But it's one of the subjects that I was able to research and write on. I have actually a book out front that's on the subject. And so what I will do right now is literally go forward and begin to share this with you. You are aware, many of you, of the islands, so we don't need to go there. You know that the islands are there. You also know the history of 1492. So we don't need to go there much further. There was a set of people living in the islands that most of us older people learned were the Arawaks. Actually, the name of those people were Taino Lucayans. The language they speak was Arawakan, like the Caribs and others. Like I said, most of us knew Arawaks and Caribs. The Carib used to eat the Arawak. No, it's not so. I need to spell that myth down for you, please. Peace-loving people came out, greeted the Spaniards, treated them well. The Spaniards learned, however, that these people were expert divers. These guys were free breathers. You know, some of you, when you were younger, perhaps dove for counts or whatever like that, you went way down there, or you spearfish, and you could be down there, and in your mind you think you're down there half an hour, and I mean it's kind of really 30 seconds anyway, but you're down there spearfishing. But these guys were able to, some of these It's recorded, we're able to stay submerged as much as 1.5 to 2 minutes. They really stayed down. And because of this, they became largely the slaves of the Spanish. For two primary reasons. Number one, they used them to dive for pearls. That's the first reason. Number two, the Spanish ships, as you would see, would come. Could you turn that light off for me, please? Thanks, that helps. Spanish ships, laden with whatever treasure there was, will come out of Cartagena, Portobello, Veracruz, all of those areas. And then they will pass, this should have been Habana, Havana, like we call it now. But they will come up through the Bahama Channel. That's the only way they were able to get back to Spain. The problem with this was, most of you know, tons of hurricanes. We just had one just the other day. And lots of reefs and rocks that they did not know existed. So many of the ships went down and still are down. But many of them were salvaged. And who did they use to salvage? The Taino Lucayans, because they were expert divers. So that was the reason why in 1513, this guy here, Ponce de Leon, came out of Puerto Rico and was coming through the Bahamas. And let me dispel another myth. He was not coming looking for the fountain of youth. Okay? Let me dispel that also. He was coming looking for Lucayan Tainos to enslave. And by 1513, most of these people had disappeared. Now, I'm not saying all were captured, because many of you would be fully aware of back home when you have raids. Let's say you are reading what we call a Haitian settlement. You're looking for illegals. By the time you should get there, half the guys are gone. They're not going to wait for you and say, oh, here I am, pick me up, put me in that bus. So these Lucayans became very smart and said, as soon as I see the ships, I'm going. And a lot of them just simply went into the hinterlands or they went north. So when he came through in 1513, on the island of Bimini, about right here, somewhere up in here, he met one lady. Because he could not find anybody else. Not that they weren't there, they just were not there saying, hey, come and take me. So he decided to go further north. And in going further north, he landed on what he called Pascua, Florida. What we're not aware of is, many of us, is hundreds of persons that came to the islands as loyalists were black and free. How? There was a regiment called the Royal Ethiopian Regiment that Lord Dunmore established, where he invited every slave who wanted to cross lines and leave the plantations and join the British Army. He would give them, as you see this guy here, he would train them how to be soldiers, and he would give them land. Well, when the British lost, they had to find somewhere to go. So they came to the Bahamas as free loyalists. One of them was among your members many years ago, Mr. Roberts. His family was one of those that came. Never were slaves in the Bahamas, but they came as free persons. Most of us here have heard of the Trail of Tears. And most of us would find no connection to the Bahamas whatsoever, except there is. Here is Andrew Jackson, Stonewall. Okay? And he has a campaign to move the, mostly Cherokees, had some Creeks also, mostly Cherokees, out of Florida into like Oklahoma and those areas. Why? Often we are not told in history books why. Here is why. Many slaves were running away to the Native American tribes. Lord, don't let me say Indian, please. Native American tribes to hide. That's how we got our Seminoles. And this was disrupting life in the colonies. So much so that the government at the time, in fact, the rebel government then, had to do something with these blacks running away and becoming allied with the Indians. Another thing was happening. The hangings were leaving the islands and going up to the southern areas of the United States and were luring the slaves away and were helping the slaves to destroy white property. So the only way to end this was to move as many Indians as you could away. This was the primary reason for the Trail of Tears, because it was Bahamians more than any others that were allying themselves with the Indians under the guise of the British, with the support of the British, and launching attacks against the White Clouds. One of the areas where they went to was Fort Mose, which was a very significant settlement by blacks. Andrew DeVoe destroyed this fort completely with his people. Two Bahamians were found to be conspirators. One was a Christian who the current Prime Minister of the Bahamas can trace his ancestry to. The other one was a Wallace, if I remember correctly. They were both hung. Because of the Trail of Tears, what I call the saltwater Underground Railroad began. Because then you had Native Americans beginning to trickle into the Bahamas looking for refuge. And one of the largest groups that came down was who we call the so-called Seminoles. They came, some of them and their ancestors live in the Red Bay area today. Seminoles, famous for this type of baskets and their carvings. And these are some of the people that live in Red Bay even now. I can trace their ancestry back to these natives that came over. And we jump in once more, Civil War. We all know what that's about. You got the blue against the gray. You have the states chopped right up and divided. I'm with the Confederate, I'm with the Union, I'm neutral. That politics right there. Many slaves ran away during the Civil War to the Bahamas, because the Bahamas was a free country from 1834. One of the families that lived on Long Key was the father of this man right here, Du Bois. He lived in Long Key. We know about the Union blockade of the southern ports. The blockade was to strangle trade and industry from the southern ports, starve them to death. The problem was they had to deal with the Bahamas, because Nassau became arguably the single most important port from which goods were smuggled to the Confederacy, arguably. And this brought in an incredible period of prosperity. So much so that the most luxurious hotel in the region at that time was built to accommodate blockade runners. The Royal Victoria Hotel. That's why that was built. Let me go back here once more. While it brought prosperity, it was this period that began the depopulation of the family islands, because people left the family islands and started to come to Nassau looking for work. And so you had a burgeoning demographic shift, but a burgeoning of the areas like Grantstown and Baintown over the hill, and expansion in those areas, because family islanders were coming in. And the records show where entire settlements on some of those family islands were left totally deserted, because everybody came out with their families looking for work during the boom years, which didn't last more than 5 years, because in 1865 a mini tsunami hit Nassau and went over most of the island and destroyed almost all the wealth that was accumulated during this period of time. This is the time you had people like John S. George making money. You know that as a common name? This is how he got his money. We all hear about Eli Whitney and cotton gin. We all know that he is the most famous person in revolutionizing the cotton industry through the invention of the gin. What a lot of people are not aware of is that cotton in the southern states came primarily from the Bahamas through Nevis, Sea Island cotton. Didn't know that. And before Eli Whitney and his gin was Joseph Eve and his gin. A Bahamian had the distinction of having a gin that Eli Whitney patented his gin after. This is the same guy who was the architect for St. Matthew's Church. Those of you who are from the islands, I know what I'm talking about. Bahamians started to move in late 1900s going into the 20th century into South Florida, and they brought with them their unique architecture, one of the contributions. Another contributions of these people into South Florida was in the area of fishing. Most of us, older person, will know what these are. Fish wells. Live wells. The Bahamians introduced live wells into South Florida. Because before that, people went out fishing, and then they had to come right back. But with the live wells, most of us who are over 60 will know that as children, you will go down to with your parent, mostly your mother, and they will go down to the docks. And you'll step onto the boat, and you will point and say, I want the one right there. Because that's what you did. And then they will take it out, scoop it out of that well, beat on the head with a piece of wood, take a piece of straw, push it through the mouth, and you went on with your fish. Bahamians introduced that to South Florida. And they also introduced exotic, both of these fruits. But they also introduced wild fish. Peas and rice. What is that? Out of course, you know, the outside. They brought their stuff with them. How do we know that? Is because this was chronicled by Merrick. Dr. Merrick chronicled all of this in the 1920s. Dr. Merrick went on to be the developer of the University of Miami, the first chancellor, the first everything. Okay? That is his legacy, George Merrick. Most of us heard that the contract started in 1943. That ain't hardly so. Because in 1918, more than 3,000 Bahamians were recruited to work on the Charleston dockyards. More than 3,000. And also what was happening during that time is 500 Bahamians were recruited to work in Tampico. What do you think they were doing there? They were cutting cane. Anybody hear about the Bahamians going off to cut cane? Yes, we were going to cut cane. We also went to Haiti, but that's another long story. Long before the Haitians came to the Bahamas, the Bahamians went to Haiti to live, to work, to go to school, so forth and so on. That's a shock of a son. Let's come here to New York, Harlem, man. Marcus Garvey. UNIA. Huge crowds. It's been estimated of the huge crowds that came to his meetings in New York, 30 to 33% or people of Bahamian extraction. The pilot of this Black Star ship was from Ragged Island, Bahamas. When this man went to jail and was released, the first place he went was to the Southern Recreation Ground to say, "Thank you, Bahamas, for your support." First place. Bahamians we know traveled into not only New York, but also into South Florida. Many, many, many. And you will see some more of the more genteel lifestyle, others were not. And we're jumping to 1919. And I want to tie it in somewhat, because World War I ends. The United States decides that it has to rethink its role. They decide they do not want to be caught up in European affairs and in its wars. So, a policy of isolationism steps in. And because of this, they decide to look inward for their own values. One of those values was the Jazz Age, the Roaring Twenties. Now, how does this tie in with the islands that most of us are from? We're going to find out right now. This is the time of free-for-all. Kick your leg up to Charleston, all them things like that, okay? Kick your leg up and have fun. The problem was, with it came organized crime, Al Capone. Records show he used to come to the Bahamas during Prohibition, because Prohibition ties into this also. During the Roaring Twenties, like I said, it was have fun. The problem was, during this time, let me just go back one minute, sorry, I'm going to find it. No, I can't. During this time, many men did not go home at night. Ain't like what's changed, but back then very, very many did not go home. And so this prompted the development, largely, of the women's suffrage movement in this country. Lips that touch liquor shall not touch us. Water liquor, stay up in the doghouse. So the United States government reacts, federal government reacts, and introduced prohibition. 1933. Now, let me pause just to say, when the Pilgrim Fathers came over, 1630s, they couldn't bring a lot of water, but they brought 90% of the beverages that came on the ship was of an alcoholic content. So this country started off with liquor. They started off drinking. Children, men, women, everybody. Okay? George Washington, like I said, paid his army with alcohol. So how do you now shift in fast pace to stop to say, ain't nobody supposed to drink no more liquor? Impossible. This guy is saying, I I go gamble, I want beer. I want alcohol. So people start to manufacture tons of moonshine. And we know that the history of moonshine, how that evolved into fast cars, and then before we know it, we had the Daytona 500. And that's where that come from. That's where the fast cars came from. Racing along the tracks, carrying liquor. But what was developed was speakeasies. In other words, talk about it softly. I can tell you where you could get some liquor. Speakeasies. These were illegal establishments where you could go and find your liquor. The problem with this was people started, it was difficult to keep up with demand. And so people started to churn on liquor in volumes. That was poison. So one test you had was, try it on the dog first. You know how you do with the fish?
That's why I go on.
Okay? Try it on the dog first. The dog jumped out there. So, because what was happening back here, the records show, thousands upon thousands of people were being poisoned, were going blind, stark raving blind, stark raving mad, by drinking liquor that was not good at all because of moonshine. Trick market. Again, like during the Civil War, the Bahamas, not so much Nassau, not only Nassau now, it extended. Bimini, Western, those of you from Bradford, Bimini will understand fully what I am talking about. It became the capitals for the export of liquor to the United States. Liquor came from Germany, well, parts of Europe, period, to Nassau. And then it was re-exported illegally to the United States. So either people came to Nassau and went to the Royal Victoria Hotel and they had their full liquor and whatever, or it was smuggled in where they could get it in these so-called speakeasies. Nassau gained the reputation of having the finest, purest alcohol you could find. All because of this one man here, a real man who was called McCoy. And because his liquor was so pure, the phrase came up, most of us over 50, 60 know, the real McCoy. That's the real thing. Like long before they say Coke was the real thing, McCoy. That was it. Then you go to the 30s, because this didn't last. The Great Depression came. Many of the Bahamians that are living in the United States, lots of them, had to go home because the local people couldn't find jobs. And so you would have signs like this: "Douglas men keep on. We can't take care of our own." This was posted by the Chamber of Commerce. While this speaks more to the Brazil campaign, which targeted Mexicans, the Bahamians were forced to go home as well. I don't know if any up in New York suffered from that. They were forced to go home. Okay? And so you're going home to what? Because you're catching plenty hell up in New York and in Philadelphia and in South Florida. And then you go home where there's absolute total hell. So what's happening now is you're coming home and you're competing for limited employment opportunities. Cause a problem. Then, moving quickly to World War II. We know 39 to 45. We know also Uncle Sam say, "I want you." Lots of young men flexing their muscle. I joined in the army. It left a void. Because a lot of the farm boys left the farm to go to fight the war. Actually, a lot of them want to get off the farm in the first place. So this was an opportunity for them to get off the farms. But it left a void. And what you had was Bahamians going on what we call the contract. One of them was the former Governor General, Sir Clifford Darling. The contractmen jobs. Women who were once housewives found themselves working in factories. So again, it left a void for other people to come and fill. A son of the city, a son of this area, a son of Howard, Adam Clayton Powell. At that time, arguably the most famous, most influential of all blacks at that particular time. This man, when he got kicked out of the United States, when he was hiding from the government, quite frankly, found refuge in Bimini, in the Bahamas. He, and this is something which I was telling the gentleman about earlier this morning at the Schomburg. While in the Bahamas, he would stop into some of the Black Baptist churches, and he became an instrument of advancing the civil rights movement in the Bahamas. Adam Clayton Powell. But more significantly, this man went to the Bahamas and begged Adam Clayton Powell to please support him in pushing the civil rights movement. It happened on Bimini. He went to Bimini to sit down with Adam Clayton Powell, who they had a little difference of politics. And Adam Clayton Powell decided, yeah, he would support him. And that's how Martin Luther King largely got the support from others to push the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King came to the Bahamas in most of the records, maybe about 12 times. One of the times he came, he was with Ellis out in the mangroves. And the story is told that he was very down because he felt this premonition of something happening. Supposedly going to happen to him. He just couldn't tell what it was. And Ellis, it's a long old story, Ellis took him into the mangrove fishing. And he said he read him a poem that he had written, a poem of encouragement based on biblical experiences. And he said that, Ellis said that he started to write the I Have a Dream message then in that boat, in the mangroves, in Bimini, in the Bahamas. 1 week later, he came back, and you know the rest of the story. He was assassinated 1 week later. Some of you have, most of you probably have not heard about Floyd Williams, the star of vaudeville, long before all those others that we could call. In 2014, I had the privilege of coming here for the premiere of a documentary on his life by the New York Museum College to earn a Tony Award. In the 1920s, he reportedly earned $62,000 plus per year, which was $1.5 million today, Floyd Williams. He was associated with Ziegfeld, died at the age of 47, and reportedly, according to the newspapers, he was laid out in the Manhattan Masonic Lodge, representing the first person of color of African descent ever to have that honor. So before them other guys, there was him. And then you have the other guys. We all know Son of the Soil, Rick Fox, Andy Wright, Son of the Soil, Al and Roxy Rocco, Children of the Soil, Esther Williams, Child of the Soil, and this guy now was just told by my wife, who has some lovely spot. Pardon me?
Lenny Kravitz.
Lenny Kravitz, yeah. This is his mother. Right. This is another, and he is in the Bahamas. He has consented to be the ambassador. Help me to understand what it is. He is
Climate change.
ambassador to promote climate change, which is what's going on at the UN now. So, today, the legacy of Bahamians and in this country and vice versa continues. And you have thousands of Americans still coming to the shores as tourists and investors and others. Similarly, in a day passes when you don't see a throng of Bahamians going to the malls in South Florida. Going shopping. And Orchard. Many of you might have heard about Orchard. Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center. Sounds like a very Pacific name, yet it is the primary staging ground, tongue of the ocean, off Andros, between Andros and Nassau, and New Providence, sorry. The primary staging ground for NATO submarines to test whatever they want to test. That's why we get all of these reports of whales floating up and dolphins floating up and everything floating up. Okay? Because we don't know what they're doing, they're quite friendly because, hey, it's a little bigger than us. But NATO is there, as well as several other US bases. I always say the Bahamas is privileged in the sense that it probably will never be attacked by a foreign country as long as the United States presence is so incredibly strong there. Probably will not. And I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. That's my presentation.
We'll take some questions.
Yeah, I have one. Going back to Bert Williams.
Yes.
It wasn't clear to me. Bert Williams is of Bahamian descent?
Bert Williams is a Bahamian born in San Salvador.
Oh, okay. All right.
Very good job.
Regina Sears Mouchette. You do Bahamian research to help find your genealogy?
Not so much genealogy. My focus has been primarily on migration and immigration.
Okay.
And let me just explain why. Primarily because there's a huge gap in our historiography. Primarily because earlier writers focus on their Eurocentric heritage. And then after independence, those emerging focus on their Afrocentric, try to draw the middle ground.
I wanted to find when my great grandmother came here from Nassau. I found her, but the only thing is I couldn't find what ship they came over on because.
I have a colleague now, Dr. Grace Turner, who's literally doing that research right now with a team. And what we're finding out is many of the persons that came over through Florida and migrated up the chain.
Right.
Some later came directly to New York. So you had both. And you also have Chinese in that mix as well.
Right.
We need to find out who they are.
I'm curious about
Can
one
I just
thing.
say something right before you say that? Can I just say something, please? In the 1660s, when the islands were raided by the Spanish, they were left almost unpopulated. Bermudans that had gone to Jamaica, 500 families were brought over to repopulate New Providence. You all could be covered, that's one.
Yeah. Due to the fact that in those early years that it was kind of primitive transportation-wise, how did they transport all those large seashores from the Bahamas to Massachusetts?
There's a book I have coming out now through University Press of Florida, and it speaks to Bermuda and the Bahamas and the shaping of the Atlantic world. Very key significance. Bermudans were the most astute sailors you had at that time, even more than the British. And because the island was so small, they turned to the sea. That's why we as the Bahamians turned to the sea. We turned to the sea because we are we hail our ancestry back to the same fellow Bermudans. They had ships that they built. That's why we have a vibrant shipbuilding industry. We built huge schooners in the islands. And so they were more than capable of carrying whatever. And they knew the waters very well. We had pirates living in the Bahamas that used to go to the Barbary Coast and raid and run back to the Bahamas. So these guys were skilled. But they built huge ships. They literally built 4-mast schooners that plied the oceans. They were able to carry anything.
All, I want to thank you for this fascinating presentation. I've always had an interest in history, and particularly Bahamian history. And in my senior years, I'm now more interested in how our country, that is the United States and the Bahamas, were affected by the exchanges and the interchanges in between various groups. I'm sure there are those of us here who remember when, for instance, I don't, this might seem like simple stuff, and it's kind of anecdotal, but nonetheless significant. When we were kids growing up, I used to think there was a term we used, and we called it day clean.
Yeah.
And to my amazement, I was struck by the fact that, I can't remember her name now, but a woman from the Sea Islands here in the States wrote a book on, in her preface, in the very entrance to the book, she states it was day clean.
Thank you, Katie Albrecht, yeah. My question is, growing up, we often heard of the Blackfoot Indians. Yeah, Indians, I know you don't like the term Indians or Native Americans, I don't know what to call them, but the Blackfoot Indians, who were they?
You had different people, like I was indicating to you, the largest, better known group of Native Americans that came down the war, the quote-unquote Seminoles. But you had people from different tribes. When Andrew Jackson went on his rampage, Native Americans had to find somewhere to go for refuge. Many came to the Bahamas. Blackfoot is a tribe.
But Dr. Tinker, I just want to thank you for coming to New York and educating us old folks. But I have a question for you with regards to the education that you've given us tonight in terms of our history. I wonder what is being done for the young Bahamians in the Bahamas relative to them gaining an appreciation for what the Bahamas is, how it relates to America, and you know, filling in the gap in their education that I never got, or you and I never got when we were growing up. What is being done to make sure that this history that you've chronicled is being used to enrich the lives of the average young Bahamian today?
Several ways it's happening. At the Antiquities Museum Corporation that I head, there's a research section. In that research section are 2 prisons at the PhD level. There are also a core of young people at the bachelor's level. We're trying to get them to write. They begin to write topics on aspects of Bahamian history so that the research could be done and could be continued. Perpetuity now, what we're looking at. And a person like Gail Saunders and myself and others will go off the scene. And we have a cadre of persons trained to take it forward. What we also have had is a series of public lectures. Instead of having it down at British Colonial Hotel, we've carried it over the hill to the churches. We've gone into the churches and we have told the story, the same story that I am now telling. And then I've been invited for the last several whatever. I resisted, but I am now lecturing at the local college, which is going to become a university. Because I feel that once I'm there, the research that I'm doing, I could disseminate that to young people and share. Let me share two things with you quickly, please. All of our lives, most of us, if not everybody here, heard of 66 steps cut by the slaves. This is a series of steps for those who are not aware. A series of steps cut that leads up to one of the forts. We were told it was cut by slaves. Well, the stairs are called the Queen's Staircase. Who was the Queen?
Victoria.
Victoria. When Victoria was crowned Queen, slavery had ended.
Wow.
How then could it have been cut by slaves? Fort Charlotte itself was, Anfield Castle was built primarily, and we have the records of it, by persons of color who were free artisans. They were paid. Now, let me shift to something else. When you go to Nassau, in downtown, right in the heart of the city, is a statue of Queen Victoria. And then when you go up the hill a little bit, in the front of Government House, there is a statue of who? What's the connection? James Carmichael Smith was the governor. This is the man who punished the people who whipped the runaway slave Pompey, of whom the museum is named. He punished them, he fired some, and he punished others, put some of them in jail. This was a white man who championed the cause of the black people, so much so that there's a church on Carmichael and St. Ambrose, Clanton Road, that has been restored. But in the walls, historic preservation-wise, are the walls, some of the ruins of a former slave church. This is where James Carmichael Carmichael Smith used to go to church with the slaves. So they appreciated him so much that the free slaves who had money collected one of the celebration of Queen Victoria's golden whatever, she was there forever. And they told him to do whatever could represent them as part of the celebration. So he went and he got Washington Irving's famous sculptor, I think his junior partner, to sculpture a statue of Christopher Columbus, which was intended to go downtown in Rutland Square. The whites at that time were upset, and they called him, among other things, the N-word lover, and a whole gamut like that. And so when he was forced to leave the colony and go to Guyana, and by the time that the statue was ready, and it came and was prepared to go to Rutland Square, they told him, they sent out the message to the Ministry of Works. It was a ministry then, but whatever, it was Public Works. Take that statue that these black people had, that belonged to them, and put it in front of his house. And they went and they got that statue of Victoria carved. And that's why the statue of Victoria is downtown, and that is up on the hill. That's the story.
Dr. Tinker, I want to thank you for the lecture, and before we leave, I want to introduce his wife, Ruth Tinker. One question I want to ask you. You mentioned that there are several lectures that your staff is conducting.
Yes.
Maybe you might want to give us some of those topics that they were.
4 of them just gave a topic the other day at Bahamas Historical Society, last month meeting actually. And they would have included, and I'm trying to remember even though I gave them the topics. One was 2nd West India Regiment, which we know was predominantly black. This was the first time a regiment of black soldiers were put in charge of policing the Bahamas period. And of course, they were brought in as a buffer class between the slaves and others. The second topic was the history of the Spanish colonization of these islands, because most people are not aware that the last campaign of the American Revolution was when U.S. rebels joined up with the Spanish to invade the Bahamas, and they stayed more than a year. That's the second one. The other one was the map of 1770. The map of 1770 is significant in that it shows the area of Bay Street from, that's the main thoroughway, by the way, from East Street, east, going to Davy Lion Road. What's significant about that is property owners included people of color, and in particular, women of color. Bay Street, owned by people of color and women of color. Unprecedented. That's like saying, and I'm kind of guessing what's down here, that's like saying, I guess, go out to Lennox and carve up half of the land and give it to whoever, or go downtown, I think Manhattan, or go by Bowling Green, whatever, and you have blacks owning those areas. But more importantly, not only black males, but female slave owners. Now you may ask the question why those properties were not owned today. The agrarian lifestyle is what guided most Bahamians. That was the value. And so Bahamians that had very valuable beachfront land, waterfront land, sold it off for, what you call it, the supper pottage? Understand right? They literally sold it off in exchange for, let's say, 10 acres of land up in Black Village, okay, or in the Foxhill area. Because what was important to them was, we need land to grow. We need to see what we can do with the seed. And just this last thing, have you ever realized that black Bahamians, predominantly, when they build their homes, the porch faces the road. The porch faces the road, so anytime you see somebody, how you doing, Miss Mary? Yes, well, I'm so-and-so. When you see the houses of many of the whites, the porch is to the back because the water is what's valuable to them. That's the difference in values. And so waterfront meant nothing to these people. They wanted land to grow crops. Crops were an exportable commodity. That's where their source of wealth was. Today I know some of the children wish they didn't sell it. But we know that's happening in our island right now. People are selling properties for $200,000, $250,000. And when you turn around, you see that same property selling for $5 and $7 million. I can tell you as a fact, because I work in those areas also. By the way, real estate in the Bahamas is horrendous in places like Nassau. I was telling somebody as I walked up, there were 3 pieces of property in an area, what area name there? Lindroff used to live. Old Fort Bay. 3 pieces of property. Nice beachfront property. One was on top, the other 2 were to the side. The 2 pieces to the side were going for $5 million, and the one on the top was going for 10. I am right there.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a reception on the 4th floor. Please join us, and you can ask Dr. Tinker some more questions about history of the Bahamas. Okay, do join us on the 4th floor. The elevator is right outside there. Thank you.